Hello and welcome to the Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple. It is so hard to believe we are just weeks away from the end of the year, the end of 2024. And guess what? We only have 2 shows left for the year. The very final one, the Dave and Tammy year-end extravaganza. You know it, you love it, you've seen it in the past. It's coming back around for another go. That's going to wrap up the week of Christmas. But before that, one of my favorite guys, a talented writer, and this is promising, I think, to be one of the best shows of the year, Mr. Adam Hamdy, episode 209 on the Thriller Zone. Oh my goodness, folks, let me just tell you something. Adam and I sat down, really just kicked back, rolled up our sleeves, shot the breeze, and it's probably one of the most off the beaten path, open, honest, no holds barred conversation I've had in a while. We talked about his books, of course, Deadbeat. We talked about my nonfiction book I'm working on, which I'll share in the show. We did not share, we kind of hinted at something that's coming in the new year. I'll tell you more about that shortly, but I can't say enough about it. It's a great show. Let me shut up and get right to it. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and yours, a guy you should be reading, Mr. Adam Hamdy. He's right here on the Thriller Zone. Welcome back to the Thriller Zone, Adam Hamdy.
Thank you very much, David Temple. It's really lovely to be here again.
This is my happy dance that you're back with me. You like that?
I could do that too.
Isn't that nice? Look, we're celebrating.
We could just do this edit, the whole, just put it on a loop. It can be a GIF.
Oh my God. Well, the book we're talking about today, I'm going to say, I try not to use this phrase, your best work yet, but I might. The book, ladies and gentlemen, is Deadbeat. I don't know who liked the book more. My new puppy, Sunny, 6-month-old yellow lab who is gorgeous, or me. It's a toss-up because she was like, she came in and was like, give me that book. No.
That's exactly how it should look. That is the Peyton Collard of books.
Yeah, Peyton. Oh boy. All right, let's get into it. Last time I want to do a little recollection here, Adam, because
let's go into the mists of time. Yeah.
Into the yes. All right. How long's it been? Let me see. First appearance was July 16th, 2021. We debuted June 17th, 2021. So you were right there at the beginning. I remember that day specifically. You were so cool, so kind. I was brand new. I was all nervous and shit. And you were just like, you couldn't have been more gracious if you tried. No. And you haven't changed a day.
A little bit.
Okay, a tiny bit. Yeah, I'm not going to bullshit you. All right, that was Black 13.
Yep.
And then you came back around September of the following year, 22nd to be exact, and that was The Other Side of Night. I'm going to flash these books all on the screen. The Other Side of Night was one of the most unusual, surreal books I remember reading that year, and it is one of those books that I can still remember scenes in my head. I can't say that about many books, and I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt because, trust me, I've read how many books now? Well, 200, more than 200, because I read some that I went, not going to finish that. But yeah, Other Side of Night, dude, that was ballin'.
Yeah.
Was there anything perhaps going on? No, just kidding.
No, it's just how my mind works sometimes. Yeah, I just wanted to do something that challenged people's perceptions of life and the universe, and yeah, I don't know. It just that's why I liked it. You challenged my vision, my perception of the universe, and I love that stuff because I think, I don't want to be too melodramatic, although I'm pretty good at it. I think there is more reality to that book than the surrealism that you implied. Yeah, no, I can understand that.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I can understand that. Yeah, there is more reality to it. There's a lot of science that went into it, but it's also it was a piece of poetry as well. So
yeah,
I enjoyed that book. I enjoyed writing that book a lot, and I do think about it as well quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I can see by the enthusiasm on your face that you did enjoy it. See, I can screw with you, and I love it. You let me. Folks, if you're tuning into this show for the first time, or maybe this is your second or third episode, and you don't know who Adam Hamdy is, first of all, shame on you. Secondly, this cat's got 12 thrillers under his belt. We got 4 with the King Daddy, James Patterson. The reason I call him King Daddy is I grew up. James Patterson is one of the reasons I knew I wanted to be a writer. There's like 3 guys that made me go, I want to be like that. In this order, James Patterson, Michael Crichton, Don Winslow. Those 3 guys. For 3 specific different reasons. But it's your show, so I'm going to talk more about you. So you got James Patterson, 5 of those. You've got 4 in the Pendulum series. Fantastic. 3 in Scott Pearce series, the standalone Other Side of Night, which we mentioned. And folks, you got to read that one, by the way. After you finish the new one, Deadbeat. I have not done this very often, but I wrote you a blurb. I don't think anyone has ever asked me to write a blurb.
Oh, I would like that blurb very much, please.
Here it comes.
What does it say?
I'm getting ahead of myself, but here it comes. And I'm going to flash this up on the screen. A don't look away morality tale that shines a neon glow on a man's sordid life. While certainly bereft of conscience, damned if he didn't have me rooting for his next evil deed. This is Adam's best work to date. Oh. David Temple, host of the Thriller Zone.
Oh, I'm going to make sure we use that. No, thank you very much, David. Thank you very much. Yeah, he's a complicated character.
It took me 20 minutes to write that thing because I kept wanting to, I didn't want to get too superfluous or melodramatic, but each word means something to me. Don't look away, because I couldn't put this damn book down. And I bet you I can count on one hand, in less than 2 hands, or the number of books that I could not literally put down. And this was one of them. I took this, asked my wife, I think she may have, she's on a conference call, or I'd get her in here. We were working out of the gym downstairs in our resort, and she was snapping a photograph of me because I'm on the treadmill. I couldn't put it down, dude. I'm not. I shitteth you not.
Cool. There's music to my ears. I feel like dancing again.
Yeah. Well, Peyton Collard. Am I saying this name right? Collard.
Yep, that's right.
Collard.
Yep.
Yeah. Like collard
if you're a little French, you can call him Collard.
Collard. You swallow the D.
Yeah.
He is one of the most unique people I've read in a long time because, he's a sad sack, to put it mildly. But, man, does he have chutzpah. And do not ask me how to spell that, but he's got chutzpah. When you first start...
H-U-Z...
It's like
T-A-H, I think, yeah.
It's like a Cholula or something?
I think so.
I'm just silly. When I'm going to be... can I be perfectly honest with you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please do. So
I'm reading it, and I'm thinking to myself at one point, I'm like, what the hell is Adam drinking? Because it was it was dark and twisted, and I'm like, does Adam have a problem? Is this reflective of his life? And then it became, is he watching too many dramas? And then it was like, and you're watching this Peyton guy, and you're like, oh my God, he's not going to do that. He's certainly not going to do that. And then he does exactly what you think he won't do. And it's like that when you go to trip, you're walking down the sidewalk and you trip and you try to look cool and get out of it, but you only do worse and then you actually just fall down. It's kind of like that.
Yep.
But man, the way but damned, like I said, damned if you didn't have me going, come on, dude, you can do this. And I'm thinking to myself at the end, I'm like, what did you just say? Come on, damn, dude, you can do this. You can kill that person. They need to go.
Yeah. It's a difficult. I set out with exactly that intention. I wanted to write a book where people are rooting for the bad guy, and when you meet him, there's morally very little at all that's good about him.
You can take the word "very" out. You can just take that out.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose he has a car.
POS.
Yeah, to start with.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to do somebody. I set myself these little challenges. The Other Side of the Night was a challenge, and this was another challenge. I wanted somebody who had very, very little, if not no, redeeming qualities about him, and yet readers root for him. And the book itself is kind of a morality test. So it's a morality tale, but it's also a morality test. And at the end of the book, I think I said, you'll see in Peyton what you want to see. It's a reflection more of us than it is of this character.
That's in the acknowledgments. And I don't think I've ever read an acknowledgment that had the author speaking to me. It's always, hey, thanks for Bob for being such a good editor. Thanks, Sally, for being such a great publicist. But here you're going, hey, reader, that's right, you. What do you think about Peyton, huh? Kind of crazy, right? So unique, dude. So fresh. God, so fresh and unique.
Thank you. Well, and also to begin with, the book is presented as true crime. It's presented as his memoir.
Right.
So I think that's somebody's inner thoughts.
That's what I think I love best, because as you get going, you're like, oh, I'm reading a journal of true crime, and you're caught up in it instantly, and you're not even thinking about, oh, boom, boom, boom. No, you're right in it. And I'm not going to say, I don't know where it was, but about 2/3 of the way in, I go, oh, I think I know who it is. And I had a pretty good idea. And then, first of all, there's two things. One is when that, what's it called? Pivot twist. When that big twist comes, that twist is so darn delicious that I had to stop and just, wipe my mouth. It was so tasty. And that is not easy to do. I think that's one of the things I was most impressed with is the deftness with which you did that.
Thank you. It wasn't really me. I mean, somewhere in my basement, I have got this real Peyton Collard locked up. He wrote the book for me, and the ultimate twist is that I've published it under my name while he's bound and gagged somewhere, being punished for his transgressions against society.
Yeah. Folks, the ending is so fraught with, what's the best word? I really am wanting to be more specific with my word choices on this show than maybe any other one, for reasons unbeknownst to many. Deft and, there was kind of a pulling apart of this story, because he's a bad dude. You want him to get his due. Then all of a sudden, the story feeds you, well, he has to do it because of this. And you're like, well, because you kept asking the reader, well, I mean, if you asked me this, and you would, Adam, and I want you to talk to me like you would if, you were asking me the questions in an interrogation room, because the example I use is my wife, Tammy. You get in between me and Tammy, and I will do anything on earth to protect her, period. End of story.
Yep. And I think it's one of the things that people kind of gloss over in life, that if you make someone desperate enough, if you create the right set of incentives, or if you disincentivize them enough and they get desperate, they'll do anything for their family, for their loved ones, for themselves. And I've been around a lot of criminals growing up, through work, through research, and there are some who are career criminals. They just do it. It's like a job. There are others who turn to it because they're desperate. They have no other means of supporting themselves. And, I recently produced this documentary here in Mauritius, where I live, about opportunities for young people. And we met some colorful characters who I won't go into too much detail about, but because they've transgressed crossed some lines, and I don't want to say anything that might identify them, but they're desperate people who have engaged in not violent criminality, but dangerous criminality, in order to support their families.
Yeah. We'd all do it, dude. We'd all do it.
Well, I don't. I mean, I write. Some people say my books are a crime, but, I don't agree with them.
No, but I mean, if somebody got in between you and your family.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah.
I know you pretty well. I don't know you super well, but I know you pretty well. I think I have a very, very good idea of who you are at your core. And boy, you're a guy I wouldn't want to get in between. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I think the same is true for most people. You find what is valuable to a person, what matters most to them. They'll make them desperate. They will do anything. So one of the things that Peyton does in his book is implicate all of us to a certain extent in every crime. He kind of looks at the degrees of responsibility we have when we look away from things, when we decide to do certain things and don't think about the consequences. How much are we implicated?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting if this is going to be a really obscure example, but bear with me a second. When I saw the very first movie, the very first Saw movie, when I saw the first Saw, where those people are asked to, you get a choice between A or B. And I was like, that is freaking twisted, but if you put me in that place, that's what I'd choose, right? And then, of course, they went on to make 1, 2, 3, it's like 12 now, Saw 12. I mean, it's all been seen, hasn't it? Sorry, that was too easy. Or it's been sawn.
Sawn, yeah.
You'd think we're both up late. The thing being is that the conflict of being put in a place. Now, there is something I wrote a note in here, and I asked myself. I said, "Oh, geez, don't ask Adam that, dude. Don't ask him. It's cliche ridden. It's boring. He's heard it 100 times. I know, but I want to ask. But go ahead. I'll be embarrassed."
Go.
Where did this idea come from? I mean, what was the a conflicting idea? What was the trigger? Because we all have these little what if? Do you remember? Without giving it away.
Yeah. No, I think it came during the pandemic when we were all very conscious of the fact that you can engage in behaviors that have impacts on other people's lives, whether it's through stopping economic activity through lockdowns and having an impact on people's businesses and their well-being that way, or passing on a communicable disease and having an impact on their lives that way. And I kind of got thinking about how every action that we take in the world is like a pebble dropping in a pond, and it just has a ripple effect. And I got fascinated by the idea of wrongs coming back to haunt people, and this idea of how far would you go? How far would you go to protect people? How far? Because obviously we've all lived through this time where governments and people took quite extreme precautions to try and protect each other, and I was sort of fascinated by the idea of how far would you go? How far would you compromise yourself in order to protect or benefit the people that you love? And that's where it stemmed from. And then I wanted to set myself a test, because a lot of crime fiction is very good guy, bad guy, good girl, bad girl. You know, it's very clear who to root for. And although you might have flawed characters, people who are crossing lines, your hero might be imperfect, but they're still a hero. And I wanted to try and present somebody who immediately wraps you up in a conundrum. Why am I rooting for this guy? He's horrible. He's horrible. And I think halfway through the book, or maybe a third of the way through, he challenges the reader and says, if you've stuck with me so far, you probably quite like me. And so...
That was brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
So, and I just thought, if somebody's going to write a memoir like this, they're going to talk to this guy's going to talk to the reader. He's implicating the reader in his crimes. You're coming along the journey, because, I was also fascinated by the fascination.
That is fascinating.
With
Keep going.
with true crime. It's so popular.
It is the single most popular podcast genre in the world right now. I think pretty much like number one. I'm not going to name the podcast because it's just going to drive my audience over there and shatter me to tears. But yeah, if she and her entourage didn't hit that one out of the ballpark, and even though it's mired in some controversy, but yeah, I don't know what it is. We're just so fascinated with true crime. I mean, it's kind of sick.
Well, I think it's because I think as human beings, we're fascinated by everything that's extreme. So sports, extreme athletes who are performing really well, whether it's the Olympics, the World Cup, the Super Bowl, extreme climbing. Crime is just another extreme. It's a social extremity. People are pushing the boundaries, and there are obviously tragic costs associated with that, which I find people tend to gloss over. People there is a controversy around true crime where some friends of ours were approached because their family was involved in a very, very infamous crime in the UK, and they were approached by a production company who said they wanted to make a 1-hour documentary about it, and you just can't help but feel their pain of reliving this horrible experience and the sensationalism that's attached to it. There is a price attached to true crime, and one of the things that I wanted to do in Deadbeat was Peyton's constantly challenging the reader, because he's asking what people would do. Would they do the same thing as him? But also, he's constantly reminded of his victims, constantly remembering how they died and what their legacy is throughout the book. So, in that way, I think you get a sense of the carried cost of crime.
Yeah, that very first one where you so expertly led me to, I'm not going to give it away, expertly led me to believe, oh, well, yeah, I'd kill that guy too. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Only to find out later, okay, maybe that wasn't quite what I thought it was. Maybe.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break to say hi to our sponsor for December. And when we come back, we're going to find out, what would Adam do if placed in a scenario like this? Stay with us. Hey, welcome back. It's the Thriller Zone. Adam Hamdy here with David Temple. The book is Deadbeat. And folks, if you're just tuning in, stop what you're doing. Go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever the hell else you can pre-order it. And buy two. Buy two. One for you and one for a friend. That's how much I like it. I get nothing for saying that.
I mean, that's a great endorsement.
There's going to be somebody who's going to pick this. Adam, I guarantee you, somebody's going to pick it up and start reading and go, Temple, I don't know about you. That's not my cup of tea. Well, maybe it isn't your cup of tea. It was my cup of tea. I gulped it down. I asked for seconds.
Yeah, I mean, you can't please everyone all of the time. I think it's one of the things that in the old days, you weren't quite so exposed to people who didn't like your work. So if you were an author or a filmmaker, you wouldn't really hear about it unless you read the notices in the newspapers. But now we're much more exposed to what people think. I don't tend to read reviews just because I don't think you're always, as humans, we're always going to focus on the negatives rather than the positives. You might get 100. In fact, actually, I was really pleased to hear, I made this documentary recently, and it was about young people and the opportunities and challenges they face in Mauritius. And we had a young Sege star, which is kind of rap and Sega, which is the local music style, and reggae fusion. And he was 22, and he said exactly the same thing. He can't help. If he gets 100 positive responses, he'll focus on the one negative response. So to the person who says, it wasn't my cup of tea, go out and buy some coffee instead. No problem. But so far, I think people are so fascinated by Peyton. It's had the kind of early readers, the Goodreads score, all that sort of thing is really positive. So I think people are enjoying being challenged by Peyton and his little story. Yeah.
Challenge is a good word. I'm going to come back to that. Plus, don't let me forget, I'm going to ask you that question we were talking about before we went to break. But I want to drop this in because it's something that I recently saw, and I think you'd like it. And I want to also cover your documentary because that fascinates me because I'm a closet filmmaker. Tammy and I just recently watched a documentary called Will and Harper. It's a documentary about Will Ferrell and one of the writers that was on Saturday Night Live back when Will started and is now transgender. And they take a road trip. They start in New York and end up in Santa Monica. And it's thought-provoking films I've seen in a long time. Really, really good. Here's my point so that you don't think I'm just coming out of nowhere. Is halfway through, they're in Texas, and they landed this saloon, and Will Ferrell, the only Will Ferrell moment in the movie. So if you're looking for Will Ferrell, the comedian, you're going to be in for a pleasant surprise. But in one of the Will Ferrell moments, he proceeds to try to devour a 72-ounce steak. And he introduces his transgender friend in Texas, and the next day, they're checking social media. And the social media bombardment, which is now to your point, that comes across in this very sensitive and emotionally driven story is cruel and hateful and nasty. And it brought tears to my eyes. I'm like, how can we be that effed up in today's society? How can you be so small-minded to do shit like that? It just blew my mind. But I bring that point because it is true. Back in the day, you might read, a Siskel and Ebert review or watch it on TV about a film, but now 13 seconds, as you're leaving the theater, people are taking out their phones. That was a piece of shit. I can't believe, right? And you're throwing swords and knives at people on a passion project they worked years to do. So I got no patience for that bullshit.
The other thing that interests me about all of this is, have you ever watched a movie or a TV show and thought, wow, that was rubbish, and then watched it again a couple of years later and said, oh, actually that was pretty good? Or vice versa. You watch something that you think, oh, that's pretty good, and then a few years later you sort of think, what on earth was I thinking? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much of what we feel about something is wrapped up in how we feel at that time. So you go into a movie theater, you've had a row with your wife, or your husband or partner, you've had a hard day at work, your boss has been yelling at you, whatever. You're very unlikely to like that movie. But if you go in and you've had a lovely day, the chances are better. So we're carrying so much of our response to art around with us. And the same is true of books, music, So I just think, and I also don't understand why everyone's so head up all the time. We're up at 11 all the time. As a society, everything's so quick, so fast, so angry, so instant to judge. So it's just, there's no chill anymore. Where's all the chill gone?
I was thinking about this. I don't know why I was thinking about this. Maybe back to our very first conversation when we were talking about why Mauritius. And I thought, I was thinking about you and living on this island. And I looked it up on the map. I mean, it's a dot in the middle of nowhere, literally. And I'm like, why did he choose that? After he seems like a city guy to me, but whatever. And then I'm like, because it's quiet. And then I started looking at the photographs like you shared with us. And it's friggin' beautiful, and it's paradise, and it's chill. One of the reasons we like living in San Diego, it's kind of, we lived in LA for a while. I did 3 tours of duty there. I can't take it anymore. So I want the chill. Life's short. It's banging on us all the time. Bam, bam, bam. Like, shut up. So, to your point, yeah. Why does everything have to be turned up a notch to 11, like you said? It's so good.
Yeah, and we don't have to be angry all the time. We can be something else. We can just be chill. Yeah.
Hey,
are you thinking of
anger,
moving then? What are you thinking of getting out of San Diego? Has the chill of San Diego become too much? Are you going to go even chiller?
Is there room in Mauritius?
I think so.
No, I don't think. Tammy and I love it. We moved into this new place that is a resort here, and we're a mile from the beach, and we're like, it's pretty friggin' magnificent. So I don't see us moving.
When you say it's a resort, what is it?
Sorry,
like?
I don't know why I used the word resort. It's condos, but if I spun the camera around and showed it to you, you would go, it looks like the Ritz-Carlton Resort, because it's there's pools everywhere and lounge chairs and gyms and that's shopping cool. And so it's really nice. We don't have to drive anywhere. We just walk everywhere.
That's cool.
So sorry, that was a little bit bougie of me, wasn't it? I apologize for my bouginess.
No, don't never be ashamed of your bouginess.
Don't bang the bougie. So no, we're not going anywhere. There are things that I want to do more of that will probably. I've got a nonfiction book I'm working on about my journey of prostate cancer, which has been quite the journey. And I have an editor. I have a really great editor, and he loves the idea, and we're banging on it. I'm hoping that'll come out early next year. And then I've been working on a thriller for probably almost a year. Pick it up and put it down. Pick it up and put it down. And the reason I pick it up and put it down is because I spend so much time on this podcast. And I was working on notes right before I got on with you. And dude, I'm going to promise you this. There are a few authors, Deadbeat did this for me. There's a few authors that I come across that challenge my thinking. It just challenges me to think, to look at this pen in a slightly different way than I would have ordinarily. And that makes me a better writer. One of the added benefits of this show is that I've been able to hang out with guys like you. I get to tap into that gold mine of knowledge and expertise. But yeah, I want to write more, and it just takes. This show takes a lot of time. I need to spend time on me.
Yeah, you do. You should, and I think you can tell when someone's thoughtful and got a point of view that will be interesting. And I think from our conversations that we've had, you should definitely pursue it.
Thank you.
Definitely. And,
it means a lot to me.
And I think also, as a writer and as a human being, it's interesting that you talk about looking at the pen slightly differently. I think as many perspectives as you can get, not to try and mimic or riff off of other people, but just being able to see the world from different points of view enhances your own point of view, develops it. And I think that's true whether you're creative or whether you're a human being, because another thing that I'd say that the world is seeing diminish is empathy, having that ability to stand in someone else's shoes. And I think that's invaluable as an author, whether you're going to use that empathy to challenge people with somebody who has no redeeming qualities, or whether you're going to write somebody that people will actually like. you know, having that ability to inhabit other people's perspectives is so important.
God, I love that. I'm just chewing on that as you speak it, and I'm serious. I've been foolish, acting foolish a lot, but that really hits home with me because I was on the walk. I was walking Sunny today, and we usually get up around 4:30. We're walking about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we're walking along the beach, and the birds and the guys are surfing, and train goes by, and I'm just looking at all this magnificent beauty, and I realize that I've so often got my head down in the game so much that I rarely pick my head up to see what's around me. And I said to Tammy the other day, well, she said it to me first. She goes, "Why do you work so hard? You're retired, but you work harder than you ever have before." And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. I guess I've done that since I was 16. But my point to you is, I was looking at life, and I've been thinking about this in this book, because as I present the book, I kind of want to do this. And I'm talking to you like you and I would just be talking like nobody's listening. You can face something like cancer one of two ways. You can go, "Oh my God, it's going to kill me." And you can get really freaked out, and that's going to feed all that stuff in your body. Or you can go, "Okay, well, wait a minute. Not the end of the world. Let's figure it out." Which I did. However, when it comes back, there's a little bit of a bitch slap that comes with that says, "Now do I have your attention?" And that led me to the title of the book, which I'll share at another time. And the message being, in a roundabout fashion, life's short. What you going to do? You know, the title's much better than that, by the way, but I'm doing that to tease you.
I look forward to hearing the title, and maybe we'll do a special episode and I'll talk to you about your book.
You know what? I would do that in a heartbeat. That would be
I would do that as well.
Oh my God.
I would do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's do that.
Thank you.
I would enjoy turning the tables.
It hasn't been done, but maybe once, so that would be awesome.
I'm serious. I would enjoy talking to you about that, because it sounds like it would be a fascinating book, and it sounds like you've been on quite the journey. And I think you're absolutely right. We're all headed for the same destination. And whatever you're doing in life is a distraction from what you should be doing. Very few people are actually, so much now. What's really interesting, my son is my youngest son is quite a proficient soccer player. Footballer for the rest of the world, yeah. So he's quite a proficient soccer player. And it's interesting talking to the coaches at the big clubs, because they all say the same thing. Kids now are head down in the phone 90% of the time. They've lost social skills. They're missing the world around them. And they said that actually a lot of kids drop out between the ages of sort of 13 and 16. Because they get into, and these are people who are at an elite level. They get into video games, they get into social media, they get, they're kind of into their online lives, partly also friends and other interests, girls and boys and whatever else. But a lot of the basic social skills, a lot of the basic appreciation for the real world is just being lost, and it's come up in conversation after conversation with different clubs, different coaches. It's a real issue. So, and it comes back to having life turned up to 11. It's not just for us; it's for our children as well. Life is turned up to 11, and we don't spend enough time thinking about what really matters. And something like your experience concentrates the mind, focuses you on what's important. And yeah, we're all headed to the same destination, but the journey, how you get there, how you choose to experience life, that's the difference. That's what we each have control over.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the title of it is, because you'll like this, because here's why. Tammy's, my wife, boss came over right after I'd gotten the diagnosis. And I'm sorry, I'm making this too much about me. It's really about your book.
No, go for it.
And he's standing there talking to me, and I had just gotten the, the word diagnosis and so forth. And he said, how's it making you feel? And I said, well, Michael, I'll be honest with you. When you get news like that with the word that starts with the C, it makes you instantly put life in 2 columns. He said, yeah? I said, yeah. The shit that matters and everything else. And he goes, wow. And I'm like, that's the title. Life in 2 columns. Semicolon, wow. The shit that matters and everything else.
Everything else. That's very good.
Because, buddy, that really, I instantly said that. And then it rang true for me for so long that I went, well, it can't get any better than that. So I'm just going to leave it alone. Because that's what it really puts it down to. You realize, well, it's only 2 things. The shit that matters. And if it doesn't matter, it's the shit, everything else. And so all I'm focusing right now, the shit that matters. And excuse my language for those who are offended. You can call it stuff if you want, but it won't be as cool. And... the poo.
Well, this is the Thriller Zone. I'm your host, Adam Hamdy, and we're talking to author David Temple about his book, The Shit That Matters, and everything else.
Yeah, life in 2 columns. Well,
yep.
Anyway, thank you for asking. There you have it. I think it's the first time I mentioned it on the show, so way to wrap up.
That sounds really fascinating. So when are you hoping to have that finished?
My goal is, I would really, in a perfect world, my editor thinks we can get it dialed in by late, first of the year, and then we're going agent hunting. We're going agent hunting to see who wants to represent it, because I got 2 ideas. I'm not going to mention the other one right now, but it's another one I've been working on for years, and I've run it across to some people, and they go, oh, God, dude, please, for the love of God, write that one. Yeah. And I use the phrase love of God for a reason, and I'll tell you about it off mic. But with those 2 books, I think I can be off to the races in the nonfiction world, which, quite frankly, I've been 3 years on this show is in fiction, which I love. Thrillers are my favorite books to read. But there's so many things I want to talk about. I would love to drill down on your documentary, and we still got plenty of time as long as you got time, because I know you're 12 hours ahead of me. But, spirituality, health and fitness, longevity, science, not so much about politics, but if you want to stir the pot, sure, I'll stir. Bring your own spoon. And things like that, that's what really gets my juices going. And I think I've spent enough time doing this that... mission accomplished, but let's let the seams out a little bit. I'm going to show you, but I will black this out when I go to show it. I'm going to show you some artwork, because it's you and me talking.
Okay.
I'm going to show you the artwork for the other show I'm talking about.
Okay. Oh, cool.
But this is all about bigger, broader, deeper, wider fiction, nonfiction.
Yeah.
But not lots of nonfiction too. So that's where that's part of where I'm.
So when you say you've been working too hard, are you working more?
Yeah. It's freaking insane. Yeah, so I'm sitting here telling you that, I'm going to probably let this line out a little bit. Oh, but I'm going to go do this. I know. My wife looks at me.
And it's going to be bigger.
It's not going to be bigger. It's going to be, let's put it this way. It's going to be wider and deeper. It won't be bigger. Yeah. Okay. So in other words, instead of like 4 to 6 episodes a month, it might be 1. But it's going to be banging.
Cool. Oh, I like the look of that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. You got plans.
I got plans, baby.
I feel positively, I don't know, languid by comparison.
Yeah. Well, don't. I got to figure out how much of this stuff I'm going to cut out, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll just leave it all in because who knows how. Anyway, back to Deadbeat. Okay. I've said everything. I've said about everything about Deadbeat that I possibly can. I started out with a rave blurb, which you didn't ask for, but I gave it to you. I would like to see it on your website.
We can arrange that. Why wouldn't I use it? You sound authoritative, David Temple.
Yeah.
I trust that.
Thank you. I'm kind of surprised people haven't reached out to me and put blurbs before, but it's probably good because there's some real shite out there that I'd love to tell about. Oh, God. Okay.
I was going to show you.
Yeah, show me.
Can you see this? This is Mauritius. So this is a still from a documentary I've just made. That's the mangroves to the north of the island. That's a bay not too far from where we live.
Oh my God! Look at the color of that. Oh my God!
Yeah. So
is that you on the helicopter on the parachute?
Oh, I wish. No, no. So yeah. So this was. Let me just stop sharing it. There's a weird mirror effect.
That's the reason.
That's the reason. It's quite a special place.
I read somewhere you could live there on. Did I read this right? You could live there on like $30,000 a year.
Oh, easily. The median income here is about $8,000 a year.
Get out of town. Is that American?
Yeah.
Dude, that's my bar tab for a year. A, what made you decide to do a documentary? B, why this topic? C, is documentaries perhaps more of something that I'm going to see more of in the Adam future?
In Mauritius, there's a small community of filmmakers, and I've got to know some of them. And one of them is a German producer who settled here about 15 years ago, and he's made more than 1,000 commercials, more than, I don't know, loads of movies, TV, and he made his commercials in New York, so they were huge, big blue chip commercials. And he said, I want to, make a documentary here. We should try working together. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. And I haven't produced anything for almost 10 years. So I used to make music videos, short films, feature, one feature film, and then my book writing career sort of took off, and I haven't produced anything for a while. And I thought, oh well, why don't I give it a try? It sounds like fun. And he said, what can we do? I want to show something really unique about the island. And I said, well, let's do something about young people, because the challenges faced by young people on this island, there's 1.2 million people who live here, it's like a distillation of the challenges being faced by young people all over the world. How do we afford education? How do we get education? How do we create opportunities for ourselves? And so we picked 6 young people to follow. There's a young footballer who plays for the Liverpool Academy here, 18 years old, really lovely guy. And we've got a jockey who rides horses, obviously, and a young marine biologist, a fisherman. Who else have we got? We've got a young woman who's escaped domestic violence with her child and is living in a shelter, in a safe haven. So we picked a really diverse group of people and got them to tell their stories, and then documented some of their lives. And it was absolutely I've used it a lot tonight, fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating to see. So, for example, I'll tell you about the footballer. When the coach at the Liverpool Academy said, I think if you want someone to follow, you should talk to this young boy called Nathaniel. He's an amazing footballer, and he comes from this incredible background. We went to visit his family, myself and the director, and it was, and this is no way to cheapen the difficulties that they face, it was like going into a Hollywood movie set, fully dressed. We drove up down these tiny little streets, covered in street art, beautiful street art, but surrounded by drug dealers, heroin addicts, music blaring, people shuffling high off their faces, a guy barbecuing chicken wings and selling them for next to nothing to people in the local community. It was wild. And we go to this house, and the dad is praising the football program his son's been in for 5 years, and it's paid for and run by the government, because he said it's one of the key ways that he's been able to avoid his son falling into drugs. Nathaniel's friends, a lot of them are either using or dealing drugs, and it's right on their doorstep. And he said, you know, there's a lot of good, honest people in this community, but how do we get out? We can't afford to leave. He's a metal worker by day and plays double bass in a jazz band by night. Again, you couldn't script it.
No.
So privately, off camera, he gave a rendition on his double bass. You know, it was just been a fascinating experience producing this documentary, getting to know more about the island. But I'm a great believer that everyone has a story, and some of the stories we've uncovered in this film are just incredible. So it's interesting to hear you talking about nonfiction and wanting to go down that road. People are a source of inspiration and wonder.
That's such a great way to describe it, because that's what pulls me in, are people's real stories. I mean, listen, I don't want to belittle or sound like I'm demeaning any of the writers that I've interviewed. Certainly not. I mean, I've been able to talk to some of the best writers in the world. Your front row seat, by the way. But let's just be honest. There's a lot of similarity in a lot of the stories. I mean, there's what did Joseph Campbell? What was that whole equation of there's only so many stories and we're just telling the same story but rearranging the names and the words? And that's all well and good, and I'm all for it. And I know it's entertainment, blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, if I've got my 2 columns, there's the shit that matters and everything else, and this column is getting smaller and smaller every single day, I promise you, while this one is growing. And that's where I choose to spend the time. So to your point, I'm fascinated by people's stories and what makes them tick, why they see life the way they do. What is that engine inside that fuels them to move forward and to win and to succeed and so forth. So is there a time when we'll be able to, first of all, comment on that if you'd like to? I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think one of the things that should be taught in school is we should do more about human psychology, mental health, but also just general psychology, because I think there are some sort of structural psychological archetypes that you can learn, very basic Jungian or Freudian archetypes, familial archetypes that you can learn that help you perceive people, perceive the world. I would never say, well, these are who you are. They're not rigid structures, but they're just useful mechanisms so that you can understand people a little bit better, understand their motivations. I think if people had a better psychoanalytical background, a bit more of an education, we probably wouldn't make the same mistakes over and over again with who we choose to be our leaders, whether it's in politics or business, because we keep picking people who have not necessarily the right characteristics. And this isn't a party political thing, so don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter which party you belong to. Quite often, you'll pick people who don't necessarily have the right characteristics in terms of being in it for others versus being in it for themselves. And that's true in business as well, and most fields where there's positions of power and authority. And I think if we had a better understanding of how people tick, we'd also deal with our relationships, both interpersonal and professional, better if we understood other perspectives, other people's inner mechanisms better. So it's a really interesting point that you raised there. I think we should formalize that in some sort of education. We just don't teach it in schools.
You just created a spark from decades ago. My father, who passed, I was only 28. He was 56 when he died, massive heart attack. And he was my hero, and it messed me up for so long, so bad. And so whenever people go, "Oh, you're such a nice person," I'm like, anything you see nice is because of my dad. Here's my point about my dad. My dad had the most beautiful ability. He was a chaplain at a hospital. That was his day job, and his weekend job was preaching in a church. And he was a good preacher. He wasn't a televangelist. Let's just get that straight away now. Because I can tell you stories that'll bend your nose on the other spectrum, which is book number 2. And here's the point. He could be talking to a little 8-year-old kid coming right out of school, talk to him right on his level, turn and talk to a 13-year-old girl, teenager, new parent, older person facing death, and he met them right where they were, and he understood them right where they were. And his biggest gift in life was probably, I don't know if it was listening or compassion or grace, kindness, all of that. So all those good qualities filtered into me somehow. But the reason I bring that up is that I think about him so every day. And he's been gone for decades and decades. But to your point, we need more of that. We need more of people just going, how about I put my phone down? Matter of fact, I'll turn it off and put it down. And let's just you and me talk for a while. Wait, what? You're going to turn off your phone for me? You really do like me, don't you? But we have lost... I say this to my wife all the time. We have lost our collective shit. I'm just going to say it. We really have. We have lost our shit. We have lost the focus. You can't walk through an airport now and not see 92.5% of people doing this, looking at my phone, or wherever it is. Football stadiums, they're videotaping the game that they're watching so that they can watch it later, to which they'll probably never watch it again. Anyway. Point being, we need more time to just be present.
Well, that's very true. I have a few little quick thoughts on that, and it's something that I touch on in Deadbeat. We are all chasing a life that's been sold to us. We are all chasing the billboard life, right? We're all chasing the billboard.
Such a good line. Such a good line.
We're all chasing the life on the billboard, the tanned models drinking Coke or, whatever the product is. They're selling us a life, and we're all chasing it. And actually, all of the stuff on the phones is all chasing that life. Now, you might think, oh, no, I'm actually just watching cooking videos. I'm watching funny pets and all that sort of stuff. What you're actually doing is watching content that's monetized by advertisers who are trying to sell you stuff. Whatever you're doing, someone's trying to sell you something. So if you're on social media, someone is trying to sell you something. There is a product that is paying for that service. There is a product that's paying for that content, and the content is being provided to you for free by other people like you who are also consumers and producers of content. So we're all just being farmed, and we're all being trained to be farmed for product. And what's happened is, instead of realizing or remembering that money is a tool, it's a mechanism of exchange, it's now an end in itself. So everything. I was talking to a friend, a writer that I'm mentoring, actually, who's written his first novel. It's a fantasy book. It's really, really good. And he, by trade, is a German teacher. And he said, there are now so few German teachers in the UK, it's going to die out as a language in Britain. Because it's just not being taught. Schools don't look at it. They say it's not economically viable anymore to have German taught in most schools. There's just no demand for it. And so we're, instead of, and what he was saying was, we used to look at languages as a way to build an understanding across cultures, to develop relationships with other countries, and now it all comes down to the bottom line. Money has kind of seeped into every aspect of life, so that it's the measure by which we judge everything. So now, even human life. There was a debate in New Zealand after the pandemic because of the lockdown that they put in place, which was really strict and had a significant economic impact. And there was a debate about whether they'd used the wrong value of a human life to do their calculations. Everything is now quantified with a price, and it's actually cheapening society. It's cheapening our experiences of life, and we're just being turned into. We're being factory farmed. Basically, that's what these things are. They're training us to be part of this advertising machine.
Well, boy, I could talk a good solid hour on this one topic, but I'll tell you, I'll try to do it in 2 minutes or less. And there are two big social media channels. One is now down to a single letter, and the other gives you instant gratification. Is that nebulous enough for you? Both of which are time sucks to the 12th degree. And when the presidential thing started, I'm going to use presidential thing. I'm just going to use a nice generic phrase. I don't think I can offend anyone with that. Presidential thing.
Yeah.
When that thing kicked up, I went to my phone, I took the single letter, and I erased it. I'm like, so at least every time I pick up that phone, I'm not reminded, let me see what's happening. Because nothing is happening of any value, really, when you think about it. Because if I'm not being sold something, I'm being berated for some particular reason that has nothing to do with anything. So that particular business model, I know it's in our life, but not for me, thank you, which you'll probably see disappear in the coming days. Yeah.
But this is fascinating because I think we are more like high schoolers than we would like to admit. Adults are more like high schoolers. If there's something cool going on, you don't want to miss out. I'm the last to the party. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the last person to be in on something. And so we hate this idea that, there's something happening and I'm not part of it. So it's really good to hear you say that you just swiped it off your phone, because that's... that is definitely following the shit that matters and everything else, the two columns. Yeah. That's definitely, you're living by your maxim there.
I have to live by that. And may I interrupt you on this one thought? I realize there's a little bit of cutting off my wrist on this in one sense, in that, can I promote my next book? Yeah, I could. And that would really help. Or does it? Now, it seems like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I'm talking to my good friend Adam, and we're sitting here doing a podcast, which, of course, we're using to promote your book. So I have people will buy your book so you'll make enough money to, fulfill that beautiful life in Mauritius. And me, I don't make any money, so I'm doing it just because I love you. But my point is, so we're feeding a machine that really doesn't need to be fed, because the people that are driving the machine are wealthy beyond measure. And I have had this discussion with so many people, oh my God, over the last few months. One of them comes to mind, but I don't want to keep dropping his name in every single podcast, I think because we talk all the time. But the point being, we have this same phrase, and I want to run it past you. Hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Did it sell me any books? And if it's not selling me any books, why am I here? This is harsh reality talk I'm giving you right here. Probably like I've never really talked about before. But we've pulled the curtain back on this show, and I'm like, have I formed some great friendships on those particular mediums? Yeah. But I always do this. If those are real friends, how often do we speak on the phone? Like in the old days. I remember when I was a kid, we'd talk on the phone. So is the friendship contrived or real?
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Because I am this close right here to saying bye-bye to all of it. Can I? I don't know. There's a little bit of a junkie in me for some of that stuff. But by and large, my life's in two columns, and You're going to be putting one column or the other, Mr. Hamdy. Boy, this has been such a good conversation. I don't want it to end.
It's cathartic.
It is cathartic. And, I'm going to put it to you this way. Here you go, because I made the note here to myself. Hey, we come back from break. Don't forget that question. God bless America. Where's his mind gone? Out to lunch. You got 3 kids. You got 3 beautiful kids, 18, 16, 13. Anything comes in between them and you, I don't care what it is, you're not going to have it. You're going to choose them over whatever that thing is.
Yep.
You'll pull a Peyton Collard. Don't make me pull a Peyton Collard on you. There's a piece of me that Peyton Collard, what a great name. That is a name I will not forget for a very long time.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, that came to me fully formed.
You mean the character or the name?
The name. The name.
Yeah.
The name. I just knew that's what he had to be called.
All right. As we start to wrap, so I can be official, we can still weave off the road. I know it's way past your bedtime, but there's 3 more things I want to ask. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd love to know, and I'm going to put you right there on the smack dab on the center of the bubble, the apex, if you will, your personal insights to the world of publishing. And I know this is a handful. You can call them predictions. You can call them how, as it relates to the business, we're in. Do you think publishing is good, better, or worse than it used to be? Do you think are we seeing the end to some of it? Do you think that it's going to, what's your insights?
I think the world of publishing is going through, it's going through a lot of changes, but I think the world of entertainment as a whole is going through a lot of changes. And again, without lambasting the phone too much, the way people are consuming things has completely changed. First of all, most people are expecting stuff for free. They want to be entertained for free. And a lot of it is short-form entertainment. Because the dial is turned up to 11, we're all so busy, it's, let's spend 2 minutes watching the guy who shows the kitchen hacks and gives a thumbs up after 90 seconds, whether it works or doesn't, and it's so... I don't know if you've ever seen him. He doesn't even speak. He just makes noises. And
yes.
So it's international. It's global. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to learn German. So I think all of that is a threat. If you look at what's happened with male readers in particular, men are very visual, and being able to watch movies and TV on your phone, wherever you are, on the train or a plane or wherever you are, means people are less likely to pick up a book. So instead of when they went to the airport and maybe bought a book for a flight, they've got their phone with them and they can now watch whatever episodes of TV shows. So I think there's change in what entertainment people are consuming when they used to read. There's change in people's attention spans in terms of whether they've just got the time and energy and attention to read. There's also the threat of AI, obviously, which everybody's talking about. And but on the plus side, the way in which people are consuming books has also changed. So you've got audiobooks much, much more popular than they used to be, and people are prepared to pay a bit of a premium because of the entertainment value and the experience that comes with audiobooks. As long as authors and publishers are willing to innovate, and for authors that might mean experimenting with different distribution channels, self-publishing, working with digital platforms, and for publishers not to just get stuck in the old model, which I think there's a danger that is happening. I think as long as people are prepared to innovate, there'll always be a market for well-told, good stories. I don't think publishing as a whole is dying or under threat. I just think it's going to continue the evolution that we've seen, particularly over the last 60 years, I'd say 50, 60 years. But the entertainment business as a whole is under multiple threats. And one of those threats is, if I look at the way that my kids spend their time, when I was growing up, most of my time was spent movies, TV, a little bit of video games, a lot of playing outside.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of being outside. And now with our kids aren't too bad, but I know from when my youngest plays Fortnite and goes to sign in, and he can see when his friends are online, one of his friends is online an average of 9 hours a day playing Fortnite.
9 hours?
9 hours a day.
There's so many things to unpack on that. And look, I'm not judging. I'm not saying that's the worst thing in the world. I'm not saying, oh my God, this is the end of society. I'm not saying that stuff. I have similar thoughts about that. But, you know, there's a little piece of me that says, whatever floats your boat. Because I was certainly told everything to do my whole life growing up in a strict Christian home. But 9 hours, Jesus, nobody, what can you even do for 9 hours?
You can play Fortnite, apparently.
Yeah.
So I think we're just in such a different world now from the one we grew up in. But it's not like it's bad, because that's such a stereotypical thing to say. It's just different. So I think if you innovate, if you build a relationship with readers, if you aren't afraid to experiment. And I was talking to a director and writer last week, actually, and we were just talking about the fact that people are having to work harder, even people who are at the A-list. They're having to work harder for less than they did maybe 20 years ago. Yeah. It's just become a more competitive world. And everybody, we're all being turned up to 11 in order to achieve a level of success. You have to work harder. You know, I'm producing documentaries, I'm working on TV, film, and books. So I'm doing a lot, whereas in the old days, maybe with some, good success, you'd write a book a year.
Right.
Maybe.
Those days
would be
are gone.
Considered a career, Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, if I can throw this at you. So my first career started at 16, went for 25, almost 26 years. Radio. I knew it as a kid. That's what I wanted to do, because I wasn't really great at sports, and I was goofy looking, but I could make people laugh and I had a nice voice. So you jump over a few things I did in between, like acting for TV and film and voiceovers and audiobooks and so forth. And I came back to radio as podcasting. So podcasting picked up around, early 2000, really kind of took off about the late aughts, and then really kind of caught fire. Now, there are people out there who think, I can be Joe Rogan and make $200 million, or I can be Call Her Daddy and make $65 million, et cetera, et cetera. Now, those are it's a lightning in a bottle. So everyone thought they could do something and be that guy. So, COVID comes along. We'll just pull out a microphone. Hey, buddy, come on over to the garage. Let's crack open a couple of cold ones and just talk shit. People will love it. And they didn't. So now, full circle, this is another conversation that I have that's right smack dab in what we're talking about. So when I first started out, the show was like an hour to hour and a half, which is about what we're clocking now. Then all of a sudden people are like, dude, can you trim it down, dude? Then it became like 45 minutes. Then everyone's like, 40 would be kind of like the new 60. Really? Fuck off. So then it became, so a couple of my friends and I in the business said, we really need to get down about 30. 30 was about a year ago. Now people are going, can you do your show in about 15, maybe 20? Yeah, okay, sure. I don't know how deep we'll get, but we can do it. And now I got people going, dude, do you have a way, can I get like a 5-minute version of your show? Well, why? That's about all the time I got. So there's a piece of me, Adam, that I go, yeah. So I started cutting promos of the show. Here's what's coming up Monday on the Thriller Zone. 2 minutes or less. The attention skyrocketed. integration skyrocketed, but it's just like you're just swiping, you're getting little sound bites. Okay, great. But does that drive traffic to this show that, folks, you're going to be clocking in around 65, maybe 75 minutes? Oh, why I don't have that kind of time. That in of itself is a conversation. Is it worth the expenditure of time to create this? Is the audience there to support it? Can I make money doing it? Sure, you want one of those things. But just lately, and this conversation is so friggin' timely, and it's coming at such a good time of the year. End of the years, we brace for a new year, because changes are in the wind, baby, just in case you're wondering. And it's making me go, how can I make this show that I love so much better, but maybe not quite the same?
I'm going to fire back at you with two questions. The first question is, people should be asking themselves, why don't they have the time? You know, growing up, my parents had their evenings, so late afternoon to evening, weekends, holidays every year. That was their time. Mm-hmm. They did whatever they did. My dad used to play squash. My mom, did various social things and parties at the weekend and stuff. Mm-hmm. And as kids, like I said, TV, movies, playing outside a lot. There was a lot of free time. Where's that all gone? Where's it gone? So why don't people have an hour, if they're interested? Not everyone's going to be interested in podcasts or whatever, but movies, TV, whatever it is that you're interested in, that's your passion, why don't you have the time to engage in it properly anymore? Why do you talk to a lot of people and they say, well, I don't really even have time to think?
Is that a straight-ahead question? Because I have some answers.
Oh, go for it. Go. I'd love to hear your answers.
All right. Well, first of all, it's what we choose. We look at this. Well, I only have so much hours in a day. I only got so many hours in a day, John. Come on. So if you have demands of children, that's a different thing. I get it. If you're having to work 2 jobs, that's a different thing. I get it. If your commutes are extra long than your average bear, that's a different thing. I get it. But to your real specific point is, that which we love, we tend to focus upon. So what that tells me is that that's really not your passion per se. Well, yeah, it is. Well, not really. You're not willing to give an hour and a half of your time? Well, an hour and a half, I mean, that's a long time. And look, I'm there with you. If I'm going to sit down and listen to an hour and a half podcast, it's going to be one of probably 3 ways. I'm going to be at the gym where I'm on the treadmill or something, or taking a long walk on the beach, or a road trip with my wife. And we just want to put it in and just enjoy a good conversation. That's the thing that is the single thing that I think we have really lost. How about just the art of conversation? This right here is it makes me so joyous. I'm going to sound like I'm clowning you, but I'm not. I mean, I love this. That's why I do this, because we have lost that art of conversation. And it's funny, something popped into my head when you were talking. The guys that are promoting, hey, put your podcast over here, like Spotify, for instance. Well, everyone thinks, wow, that's cool. I'll go to Spotify because it's free to host there. Yay. Well, they're making money off your back, by the way. And A, they're making money off your back. B, you're probably not going to make any of that money. C, now they're promoting, can you cut out the gaps so that in the conversation you just really crunch all the words together?
Yep.
So this thing where we go, I've been thinking about that. Oh, can you close that? Because it's wasted time. There's a pet peeve of mine.
But my other question to you is, if people are asking for a 5-minute show or a 10-minute show, why not just give them that? Just turn it into a format.
Well, it's funny. I have so many of these pads in this house. It's embarrassing. And it's ridiculous because I'll start scribbling notes and I'll lay it down and they look like all the others, so I can't find what I'm looking for. Goals for 2025. One of those includes a shorter podcast, but with deeper conversations.
Cool.
With a wider variety of people. With things that don't bore the shit out of me.
I like it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So we're going to see you back with a half-hour show.
5-minute show.
Oh, 5 minutes. Cool.
Yeah, it'll be like hi, Adam, how are you? Good, David, how are you? What's new? I got a book. What's the book? Deadbeat. What's it about? Peyton Collard. Oh, who's he? He's a deadbeat. Uh-huh. Tell me about it. Blah, blah, blah. And then what? Blah, blah, blah. And what happens then? Blah, blah, blah. That's great. What's your website? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye now.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Because Daddy's got to keep himself in beer for the weekend. How you doing?
You know what? You've just won the game of when everything's about money. That's exactly what the world sounds like. It's just get through it. Get through it.
You know what would be really interesting? I will not disrespect it, but this would be interesting. I'm going to leave as much of this show together as I possibly can because there is some good shit on the show. I might not cut out hardly anything. Even the secrets that I told you I was going to cut out, I might even leave them in there. I got nothing to lose. And there's something nice. When a man's got nothing to lose, he's got everything to gain.
That's Peyton Collard.
It's also David Temple.
There you go.
And Adam Hamdy.
Yeah.
Did I answer that question? Because I was going to move on to number 2 of the 3, of course. So yeah, can I just cut it down to its absolute minimum? Could I cut this into a 5-minute show? Yeah, I could do that. Now, here's the thing that most people don't know. And you know this because you're a documentary filmmaker. And there is an equation. I'm going to hatchet it, but there's a rough equation that it takes roughly 1 hour of editing time to create 1 minute of content. Yep. That's about right. People go, that's bullshit. No, actually, if I sit down and edit you, if you and I are talking we'll go 60 minutes, it's going to take me, if this were a documentary, 60 hours at a minimum for that thing to be interesting. Now, if you just want a hatchet job down to 5, I can probably do it in 120 minutes. But I think the real... Here, I'm kind of coming at you with 2 fists here. Can I do a 5-minute show? Yeah. But boy, if I do that, I have got to, in my personal opinion, and I can drill down on this, but you really don't want to ask me because ask my wife. I will not tell you the absolute truth until you ask me directly. And then I go, well, you asked me, so now I'm going to tell you. But 9 times out of 10, you're never going to really know how I feel exactly. I'm talking to you as though this were my last show on the air. Because there are a lot of things I do not say. Because what does it gain? It's just my opinion. But I'm going to offend a lot of people along the way. Or I'm going to piss you off. Or I'm going to offend you. Or you're going to go, well, I'm going to go watch this podcast because it's... No, I don't care. One thing about these drugs that I took for doing this cancer is that sometimes I'll be right in the middle of a sentence. I do not remember what I was going to say next. And I just hit that point. So
you asked me, you had 3 questions.
Yes.
One of them was about publishing.
Number 2 was, what is your favorite, and thank you. You're so kind to me. Thank you. Your favorite and least favorite part of your career as it pertains to writing.
My favorite part about writing is everything other than promoting. Now this I like. I like being with people who are asking good questions and just chatting and everything. But I find it quite difficult normally to talk. One of the things I like about this is we've talked about a lot of other things other than the book. But when you talk to some podcasters, radio and everything, it's just focused on the book, and you kind of, it's incumbent upon you to try and promote the book and everything. I feel kind of awkward talking about my work, and I don't know. I like everything. I love the idea generation. I love the process of writing. I even like editing. A lot of authors complain about editing. I love editing. I
love editing.
Yeah. So everything, the bit that I struggle with is promoting. I'm not the best promoter in the world, which I think you need to be now in publishing. So coming back to the publishing thing, if you're an author, you need to be better at promoting than you've ever been. So in 2025, I'm going to try and change my ways. You're going to change in 2025. I'm going to change as well. I got some things I'm going to try. We'll see.
I think you should also be very cautious and focused on what shows you get on. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I'm probably one of the top shows, thriller fiction podcast shows out there.
Yep.
And I don't say that to toot my horn. I really don't. I think what it is I have, and I do this out of homework, Adam. I will listen to my competitors. I'll scroll through that radio dial and I just punch the buttons. There's an old reference. And I listen to who my competition is because that's what we did in radio. So I want to know who my competition is. And then I'll go, what are they doing that I'm not doing? What are they doing better than what I'm doing? What are they doing that I should never even think about doing? Right? And so to that point, you need to be focused to find the best. If you're going to spend the time, life's 2 columns, baby.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be
columns.
the one that matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pick the ones that really do you justice, because it goes back to that social media conversation we had. Does being on that single letter channel do anything for you? Not really. They're still making a lot of money on you, and they have all this information about you. That's what blows my freaking mind. TikTok, I don't even want to get started about it. But if you go to your apps and you look at what information they have access to, you think, well, they're going to do it anyway. No, they won't. But if you've ever wondered why you are talking to someone about this topic and all of a sudden you go to sign in and do a browse search and there's something about Mauritius, flights to Mauritius, you're like, guys, coincidence, man. No, this heard that and shared it with that because they paid them to do that, and they got a piece of you all the way down the pike.
Yep.
And my third and final, which is something I've asked you I asked you when you came here in, July of 21. What's that best writing advice? Because that's what everybody sticks around for at the end of the show. Well, except for maybe this one, because it's too long.
So Mr. 5 Minutes is going to be really disappointed. So I think when I came on before, I talked about as an author being taught to find your voice and then learning how to lose it. And Peyton, and actually I think last time when I came on to talk about The Other Side of Night, and I said you need to lose your voice, I think Peyton was the book I was writing at the time, and I said I'm working on something that's doing exactly this, trying to lose the voice. And I hope he comes across as an authentic American. I was trying to lose my voice to find his. Actually, no, he is really locked in my basement. But no. So I talked about the fact that you find your voice as a writer, then you try and lose it to instill the books with real characters. I think today's advice is all about those perspectives. I've been studying a lot of psychoanalytical theory, archetypes, personality traits, familial archetypes, Jungian archetypes, to get a better understanding of how the things we experience in childhood can establish patterns. And these aren't set in stone. It's not a gospel. It's just a perspective. It's a framework for trying to understand people and trying to understand the world. But there are things that people will experience in childhood that will set patterns in them for later life, how they'll interact in certain situations or with certain people. And if you don't understand those patterns, you will keep repeating them. If you don't understand the causes, the root causes of those patterns, you'll keep repeating them. And I think it's really useful as a writer to delve into those into that psychoanalytical theory, to give more realism, to give more depth to your characters, because these are things that you will recognize in yourself and in people around you, in personalities that you'll have met. So, for example, Peyton is a scapegoat, and that's a familial archetype, and a scapegoat is someone that acts out the worst possible path in their life and they're so used to being blamed by others that they start acting in ways to attract that blame. And so I think having an understanding of those as an author, as a writer of any kind, is really important.
I'm a big fan of studying the archetypes, because what you do is, instead of going, John walked in the room and kicked Bob's ass. Well, if I knew why John walked in the room, why he was so angry to kick Bob's ass, well, he was drunk. Well, no, there's more about that. That's where I get interested. If you tell me, well, he's got a short man's complex, and he had a really big brother, plus his dad was always telling him he'd never amount to anything unless he stood up to guys. Well, now you've given me texture and relevance and backstory. So Bob may not have even done anything. Anyway, that's a little bit of a diatribe, but it's interesting to me.
I think it's one of the key things I think I'd recommend to all writers. Get into that sort of stuff.
Deadbeat. Great cover, by the way. The first time I saw it, car going along the side of the road, Hollywood, yeah, whatever. And you think nothing of it until you start reading the book and you go, all the little tiny pieces make sense. And back to that blisteringly delicious blurb that I wrote for you. The reason I used shines a neon glow on a man's sordid life is I could have said it shines a light on a man's devastating life. No, it's a neon glow on a sordid life. Sordid. He's bereft of conscience. Adam, again, you never cease to amaze me. Your graciousness knows no bounds. The way you have listened to me ramble on for an hour plus. You've sat there and you've been a prince. When I know you're tired and you're like, is this boy ever going to shut up?
I'm beyond tiredness, so please don't even worry about it. And I've been rambling too, and we've just had a good conversation, which, as you said, is a dying art. And Mr. 5 Minutes can send us some angry emails.
Yeah, he can blow me. So here's another thing I want to. Here's another thing I want to ask. What is the name of this documentary that's in process?
It's called Ocean Star, and we're I think the last stage of post-production is happening sometime next week in London, and then we're going to put it out in some festivals, and we're talking to a couple of distributors at the moment about getting it on TV around the world. So, yeah, hopefully people will be able to see it soon.
Good. Make sure that we stay in touch about that, because I want to see it. Also, do you have any plans to make your way into the Los Angeles arena while you're doing promotion?
Not at the moment. Not this year.
New York?
No.
London?
London, possibly, yeah.
So I'm going to have to fly to London or Mauritius if I wanted to sit down and have a refreshing beverage with you?
If you want to have a refreshing beverage, come to Mauritius.
Yeah.
I'll take you to some nice places.
How long of a flight from San Diego?
Oh, I do know someone who came from California, and they went via Dubai. It took them 25 hours. It's far. It's a long way. I know.
I could do 25 into 5 minutes. How many podcasts could I do? A 5-minute podcast in 25
5-minute podcast. Wow. Do you know, actually, that's an idea for a podcast. 5-minute interviews with everyone on your flight.
I could do that.
5-minute interviews with everyone on your flight. You just go along the plane, you say, I'm doing a podcast, and it's called Flight. And it's interviews with everyone on this plane. Tell me about yourself.
I have to go back and think about this again. So 25 hours means that I would, if I flew out of LAX tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., I wouldn't get to you until 1 a.m. the next day, right? Yeah.
I think it'd be more like you'd get 6 p.m. You'd arrive at 6 p.m. the next day.
Okay.
Like 6 p.m. 2 days later. Because we're 12 hours ahead.
Oh my God.
You travel through time. We're back to the other side of the night. You'd go. This is like It's all going on.
Dude, I love you. I don't know that I've got it in me to do that. I mean, I'll tell you what, though. Is Italy on the way to you?
Yes, you can get a direct flight from Rome. And London's also on the way. You can get from London to here in 12 hours. So go to the UK, do a couple of weeks there, come over here for a couple of weeks, go to Italy. Like world tour, just do it.
Yeah. Well, baby and I are planning a fall trip next year. Well, this has been dandy, a dandy of a time. Folks, if you want to learn more, go to adamhamdy.com. As I said earlier, buy 2 copies, one for yourself, one for a friend. It's entertaining as hell. I'll tell you that right now.
It's going to challenge you. David?
Yes, dear.
I'll be back on when we do your interview about your book, Life in 2 Columns.
You got it. I would love that. Would be so refreshing to have someone, especially somebody who's a great interview, be an interviewer.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I've learned from the master. I've done 3 of these now. I've learned from the master, so I'm ready.
I have one rule and one rule only. You know what it is? It's 2 words. It's as easy as it gets. You want to know what it is? Have fun.
Oh.
That's it.
That's life.
It's life. Exactly. All right. I'm going to hit stop so that I make sure and do not leave until everything is uploaded. But
okay.
Adam, once again, man, it doesn't get much better than this.
Oh, thanks for having me on, David. It's been a blast. It's been really good. And thank you for your blurb. I am going to use that, so don't worry. You'll see it. And the bright lights on my website, maybe even on a book. Whoa. Yeah. Maybe on the paperback. Let's get your blurb on the paperback. Cool.
Oh, man, that was good, wasn't it? I know it was a little bit long. I got a few friends who were like, Dave, that thing was long. Well, if you didn't like it, you can tune out at any time. But talking about real and honest and open and just sharing like 2 pals sitting around having a cocktail at a neighborhood tavern, right? Just sharing and talking. It's the art of conversation. Oh, I love that. Well, next week, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, next week marks our 3rd Dave and Tammy year-end extravaganza. We do it every year. It's usually the week of Christmas. And we're going to talk about our favorite books of the year, our favorite movies of the year, our favorite TV series of the year. We're going to talk about, and we're going to sprinkle in some other things. We've got some inside scoop, aka big news coming for 2025. When you hear of our launching guest, you're going to go, what? I'm so geeked out, I can hardly stand it. And there's some new things coming down the pike in 2025. I think you're going to like it. I hope so. You've been a great audience, and you've hung with me all this time, 3 years, it'll be 10 episodes by the time we wrap 2024. Oh, baby, I'm just getting started. I am going to get on out of here. You enjoy the rest of your week. I am your host, David Temple, and this is the #1 thriller podcast in the world today, The Thriller Zone.
Your front row seat